Hello friends, welcome to the M.A.R.E podcast. Before we get started, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget that you can find more about the M.A.R.E project at www.marehamburg.com, and you can support the project and this podcast through Patreon. All the links are in the description. Enjoy! Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the M.A.R.E podcast brought to you by the Honor Frost Foundation. This is a very special episode today because I have Dani and Ceri from the Honor Frost Foundation itself here with me to talk about various topics that interest maritime archaeologists, early career maritime archaeologists specifically. So welcome to you both. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
So, would you like to introduce yourselves? Who would like to start first and talk a bit about yourselves and what are you doing and what's your role within the foundation? And also about yourselves, your studies and what led you to the Honor Frost Foundation.
So my name is Dani Newman. I've been with the foundation nearly 4 years now, and I am a recent graduate from the University of Southampton. I finished my PhD there 5 years ago, and my research was on public engagement with maritime archaeology. And my role in the foundation is really to help early career researchers. So I manage our training grants, so our career development grants and training and capacity grants. I work a lot with scholarships, and I also do work on our website and our social media.
Thank you very much, Dani. Thank you very much for this introduction. So how about you, Ceri?
Hi, George. My name's Ceri Ashley. I joined the foundation just over a year ago, so I'm still quite new and still learning a lot, particularly because I don't come from a maritime archaeology background. I'm an archaeologist, and I tend to focus on material culture studies, and historically been working in Eastern and Southern Africa. I did my PhD quite a long time ago, which I'm not going to tell you quite how long ago. And since then, I have held academic positions in the UK, the US, and in South Africa. But before joining the Honor Frost Foundation, I was at the British Museum for 6 years, where I led a program on endangered material knowledge around disappearing craft and material practice traditions on a global scale. And that involved a lot of working with researchers and awarding grants. And on the back of that experience, I moved to the Honor Frost Foundation to take up the role as grants manager. So my role at the foundation is really to work on all the sort of competitive grant awards, supporting applicants, helping work on the process, working with all the kind of decision making, and then supporting grant holders as they go through the projects and complete them. And then working also, of course, with Dani as well on the sort of early career as well, scholarships.
Excellent. Thank you very much, both. So to get more into the foundation, can one of you tell me what's the Honor Frost Foundation? What is it about?
Well, I'll start, but I might hand over to Dani as well, because, of course, she's got a few more years on me in terms of some of these details. The Honor Frost Foundation, at a very essential point, is a foundation to support research and knowledge and dissemination of maritime archaeology in the Eastern Mediterranean, with a particular focus on work in Egypt, Cyprus, Lebanon, and to a lesser extent at the moment, Syria. Historically, there's other projects we've supported which are directly linked to Honor and her research itself, sort of, for example, in Sicily. But our current focus is on those 4 countries and supporting emerging researchers through scholarships and capacity and training grants, as Dani mentioned, but also to support a global network of researchers to carry out original and new and exciting archaeological research pertaining to maritime archaeology in all its guises and all its wonderful directions. Maybe, Dani, you could talk about Honor a little bit. I know you know more about Honor and her personal sort of story.
I mean, Honor Frost was really one of the founders of maritime archaeology in its modern incarnation. She was there right at the beginning on incredible projects like Cape Caledonia the Punic Masala shipwreck, which was the project that really took a lot of her career and that she's really well known for. But she did a lot of work on anchors, typologies of anchors, harbors, harbor structures, and was really seminal in helping develop methodologies and ensuring that archaeologists in a wider sense realized that the same rigor that we apply to projects on land, we also need to apply to coastal and maritime sites. And there was really no excuse for archaeology not to be as robust underwater as it is on land. And just adding on to what Ceri said, I sometimes like to joke that at the foundation we're working ourselves out of a job, because the foundation is really big on capacity development for the region, and really big on making sure that in the future, maritime archaeology, in the stories that it can tell, are being written and discovered by people from the region. And so that's one of the main reasons that the foundation exists.
Well, that's an excellent introduction into what we'll discuss today. So thank you both. So I brought you here and I asked you to be here to talk about early career researchers, to talk about funding, to talk about careers. And because you talk to a lot of early career researchers, I'm sure you'll have plenty of useful opinions for everyone to hear. So let's start by giving advice. Do you have, any of you have any practical advice you would like to give to early career researchers to, for example, I'm talking about like post PhD or during PhD, how to transition from the academic world to the real world, how to reach their goals, how to increase their chances on landing a teaching position they may always wanted, something like that. Any practical advice you'll give to early career researchers today?
I think my main advice, and this is the advice I always give, is to network. Is to use your PhD as an opportunity to meet as many people as you can, in as many disciplines as you can, in as many different facets of archaeology, not just maritime archaeology, but archaeology as a whole. It's a very unique time where you have sort of 3 to 4 years where you're being paid to learn, and you're being paid to talk about your research, and you're being paid to just go out and explore, and to really, you're given permission to make mistakes and to keep learning while you're doing this. So, and I learned so much when I was doing my PhD because I reached out to different people, because I took up opportunities that were relevant to what I wanted to do. And that's the caveat on all of this. When I say go out and network, go out and take opportunities, is there comes a point where you really need to assess what the opportunities are and decide if they're actually something that will bring these connections, bring these networks, and develop your career. So, yeah, that's my big piece of advice.
Very important. Yeah.
I mean, I think I would echo exactly what Dani said, and that sort of remember or try and enjoy and appreciate that time that you have as a PhD student. But maybe something that I've been thinking about and sort of reflecting back from when I was an early career researcher, and also now working with people, is that sort of transition to almost like professionalizing how you are and who you are, and sort of that ability to move out of being a student and moving into sort of something where you're a little bit more independent, but also, that has real practical implications, like how to write a grant application. And I'm going to sort of talk about these sorts of things, these focus, but it's a very different type of writing to an academic writing, to how you write a chapter or how you write a paper. It's also like things about how you write your job applications, you do your proposals, or all these sorts of things. And is don't be afraid of learning those skills and building up those skills, and that they take time. It's a different type of skill. and it's a different type of writing, and it's no less important in terms of the kind of the mechanics of getting for. You can be a brilliant scholar, but if you don't know how to phrase or frame this, you won't get to those next phases. So really sort of start early, practice, and don't be disheartened, and ask for help.
Oh yeah, excellent. So that gives me a perfect passage to go into the next big thing I want to talk about. The thing that everyone talks about is, how do I apply for funding? How do I get the grant? And you mentioned something about learning those skills, but do you maybe have anything else specifically of early career researchers? I think are mostly looking for scholarships and grants. So some tips on applying for fundings, maybe not only for the honor frost, but generally. Because I think everyone is sick and everyone's chasing a funding somewhere.
Of course, and that never goes away. That's all. And remember, as I say, this is going to be with you for the rest of your career. I think it starts with research. It's go and find out what's out there and find out what the funders want to fund. Don't try and force them to try and fund something they're not interested in. Learn about your funders. Go and do the legwork and see what is available, and see which part of your project might align with their interest, their foci. And that's, remember, you can do multiple applications that, different things that cover one part or something, complementary applications. So it's about being a bit savvy, I think, about having a suite of things, not relying on a single thing. So I would absolutely, for the maritime archaeologists out there, do not just apply to them on a Frost Foundation. We're great, of course we are, but we, go out there, ask lots of people, talk to lots of people, network.
Yeah, exactly. Network is super important. So I don't know if Dani wants to add something on funding, or...
I think my big tip on applying for funding is to always read not just the funding that you think you want to apply for, but also all the funding that an organization offers, because you'll really be able to find out what broadly they're looking for, and maybe find a track that's better for what you want to do. So at the Honor Frost Foundation, we have several opportunities for early career researchers with our training grants, and they're all a bit different. They all offer different things, different amounts of money, different responsibilities, and they're really there to meet different aims that the foundation has for building capacity, for building emerging scholars. So I guess just don't necessarily lock into one grant, one opportunity. As Ceri said, look more widely and see what else could complement, what else could supplement, and what else is available both within the foundation and more widely.
Excellent. Yeah, I think people listening have I think 3, 4, maybe even 5 very practical tips on how to move about this. So thank you very much. So now I'm going to start with Dani now, and since I've bet you've seen lots of applications for PhD, for masters, MAs, MSCs, whatever everyone's doing. So I wanted to get your opinion and insight on what makes a PhD or a master's application stand out. What would people should really strive for, aim for, when writing a PhD or a master's proposal?
I think the first thing I look for is really an idea that the person has looked at and read more widely around the subject, and that what they're proposing fits within sort of a wider framework, but that it is still moving the topic forward. So, and I want people to be thinking about manageable things as well when they're applying for scholarships from us. So it's very easy to think you can change the world with your PhD, and you can change our discipline with your PhD. But actually, some of the best applications and some of the ones that we're more inclined to focus are really looking at something nice, something practical, something that's manageable for the student to do in that time. So it's all about your research proposal. really. And it's all about if you've done the research and can convince us that this is something that is worthwhile for us to fund and something that will be of benefit to the wider maritime archaeology world, not just in the Eastern Mediterranean, but also more broadly. Will this be a nice piece of scholarly work that will bring something to the table?
Excellent. How about you, Ceri?
I mean, I'd definitely reiterate Dani's point about viability, something that's realistic and shows you've thought it through. I think maybe the other thing for me is don't presume people understand significance, or don't, you really have to show why something is interesting and worth doing. Just because something hasn't been done before, that's not good enough. That's not enough to justify tens of thousands of pounds or dollars and time, and your time, on a scholarship. And, remember, it could be someone like me that's reading your proposal who is an archaeologist, but is not necessarily a maritime archaeologist. So I don't come in with the same sort of awareness of sort of key sites or something. You're going to have to justify, you're going to have to show me why something is still relevant or should be done. And I think that's something that often gets presumed, that, just because it hasn't been done, it should be done. And that's not the case. We've got scarce resources across scholarship. You really have to show why it's going to bring that extra added value.
Oh, yeah. No, that's very important. All right. That's super interesting. Then, okay, we've been through it. We applied for a PhD. We applied for funding. We got into the university we wanted. We got the funding, and we're there. And we're doing it. So now I'm going to Ceri again. How do I make the best time out of my PhD? How do I use those 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, to benefit myself more than just writing a thesis?
Well, probably do what I didn't do, which was just sort of focus on doing my thesis and not doing enough of the other things. I think there's what Dani was talking about earlier, about that idea of networking and taking advantages. Look at, maybe, if you've got the capacity, look at things, adjacent projects, helping organize conferences, all these types of skills and experiences that can help you build a sort of a network, but also different skills. And obviously publications, all of these types of activities. So when you come out, you've got more than just a PhD, which sounds like a crazy thing, because, the PhD is the pinnacle, isn't it? But it's not. There's lots of people with PhDs out there. What else have you got? What else can you do in this? And also, ultimately remember that it's about enjoying it. And if you come out still loving your topic, that's, that will come through as well.
Excellent. How about you, Dani? What would you say?
I mean, it's a lot of echoing what Ceri said. It is about just taking on board those opportunities, and it's about in many ways not saying no to small things that could ultimately lead you down a different path and teach you something really important that you wouldn't have the opportunity to learn about in another time. Because once you finish your PhD, once you're in sort of the real world as it is, those opportunities are more difficult to access, and they're fewer and far between, and potentially you'll be with an organization that can't offer you those opportunities. Potentially you'll be snowed under with your work, and you'll see the emails arrive and go, I wish I could, but I can't. So this is 4 years that you can really enjoy all of these small nuanced workshops, attending a conference, doing these things that otherwise would be out of your range. And also it's an opportunity to, as Ceri said, to build that cohort around you. So some of my best friends and some of the people that I still consult weekly about sort of wider issues in archaeology are the people that I did my PhD with. And I will rely on them as my contemporaries moving forward with our careers, as benchmarks for how we move forward and how we're going to be, basically, how is one an adult as a maritime archaeologist. And it's very important to have those connections outside of your professional ones, to have the people that still remember you when you started off as a PhD student. So nurture those friendships and nurture the coffee dates, nurture the pints after work, nurture these things, because they are so important while you're doing your PhD and when you move forward after your PhD and become an early to mid-career researcher.
Oh,
Can,
that's yeah. Oh,
can I
go
just
ahead.
jump in? Sorry, George. I just reiterate, someone who's now looking at sort of several decades after PhD, I'm still, I know people across the university networks, museum networks, and we work on completely different things, but I've got people I know and I trust and I can go to, or I can refer people to, because we still have that sort of original connection, and it's something that's really special. So do really enjoy that and value that, and don't just stay in your own little kind of pod or your own little subject. We're all archaeologists.
Yeah. For example, you can jump onto the MARE podcast and do a podcast. Just giving an example. Yes, that's super important and valuable. I think when you do a PhD, you tend to forget about everything else other than your PhD, because it feels like a big goal you need to achieve, and once you achieve it, like everything will be just fixed and the world will be fine again, which is I think never the case. So I think we should move towards the after of what's going on. And I wanted to ask a kind of vague question about the future of maritime archaeology, and how do you see the future of maritime archaeology, since you see so many applications, you see so many grant applications and PhD applications and master's applications. And with that question, just a little parenthesis, there are people who say there are just too many of us, and what are we doing here? There's no space in maritime archaeology for everyone, and someone needs to go out. So what are your thoughts on the future of maritime archaeology, and on that there are too many researchers?
I mean, I'll answer first.
Please go ahead.
I think the future of maritime archaeology is bright. And I think if the indication of the applications that come across my desk for our training grants and for our scholarships are any indication, there are some very interesting projects and very interesting thinkers coming up through the ranks into maritime archaeology that are really embracing interdisciplinary work, embracing the new technologies, embracing new methodologies for thinking about heritage and thinking about how we communicate it, thinking about what its purpose is. And that to me is really exciting. I love it when an application comes in and I'm a bit challenged by what the person is talking about. I love it when I have to go and do a bit of background reading and find out more widely about what the context of what the person is presenting. And so I think the future looks great. Are there too many researchers? I mean, it's quite a loaded question, isn't it? But I think there's space for everybody to have a career in maritime archaeology if they're a bit flexible about what that career is. So in my role, I'm a maritime archaeologist, but I don't actually get to do a huge amount of research of my own. That having been said, I think that my position and the role I play within the heritage sphere is very important. And I think that it's, for me, it's more rewarding than if I'd stayed at a university and had worked within that system. So I encourage people to think about whether or not a pure academic route is what would serve them, what would serve their personality, what would serve the research questions that they have, what would serve their ultimate goals in in working in maritime cultural heritage, because there's lots of different ways to be a maritime archaeologist, and no matter what, you'll always find a way to have a pet project. You'll always find a way to keep research going, and just that might not necessarily be your bread and butter day to day of how you pay your bills.
Excellent. How about you, Ceri? What do you think?
I think this question's always happening, isn't it? Are there jobs? And it's not maritime archaeology; it's archaeology. It's the humanities. It's this broader crisis, and it just has different iterations. And no, there aren't enough jobs. Let's be honest, in a strictly academic, that formal capacity. But just sort of maybe thinking along those same lines is that people go into different directions, and that's okay. I think when you're a PhD student, there's also quite a lot of pressure to follow a traditional academic path as a sign of success. And success can come in lots of different ways, and it's also about happiness and an enjoyment and your work-life balance. Again, someone who's my career has taken lots of different kind of permutations from very traditional academic positions, postdocs, to sort of something that's a bit more applied now, and it works for me now, and that's the way. And I think it's remember, don't put too much pressure on yourself at that outset, and do sort of recognize the various different ways. And that the other thing, the story that always comes back is that the impact archaeologists have in non-archaeology worlds, all those archaeologists who went on to train as something else or work somewhere else, but still have that archaeological knowledge and what they can do with that in their civil service jobs, in their role as a school teacher. And that's also really important as well, because it's, archaeology is still in the conversation. So don't put too much pressure on yourself as well. Something to just remember.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think, I think the listeners of this podcast has gotten some solid advice today. So thank you, both of you, for being here, for sharing this information with everyone. Do you maybe have any closing remarks before we close the episode? Anything you'd like to live out into the world?
Well, I'm going to say to all of you, listening to this, maritime archaeologists, I'm going to do a plug for the Honor Frost Foundation. Do get in touch with us as well. I think that is what I'd really like this podcast to achieve, hopefully, is to make us approachable, so that if people are interested in these conversations or interested in doing some projects or getting some grants, do get in touch. It doesn't have to be a kind of faceless thing. Drop us an email, tell us what you're interested in. We'll help you as much as we can, because that is our jobs, and lots of places and people do that as well. So don't be afraid to be in touch.
And also, following on from what Ceri suggested, we actually have a bit of a formal way of recording people who are working in maritime archaeology, and finding out sort of what people are interested in learning about, what workshops people might be helpful for people to have. So if you go to our website, there's a page called Your Future with the Honor Frost Foundation. And if you click on that link, it's a very short survey, and we're constantly accumulating data from that and using it to help us decide on some of the larger capacity building projects that we fund, workshops that we fund, and so on, and helping us better understand what the needs are in the region and what capacity currently exists. So if people want to fill out that form, that is an easy way to help us help you, which is what we really exist to do, is to build capacity in the region, and use this incredible legacy that Honor Frost provided in a way that will benefit future generations, and will just keep growing and growing and growing for the field.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode with the M.A.R.E. podcast. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye.